As we reach the age of 60, something transformative begins to happen. There's a shift that takes place, a deep realization that while society often tells us we need others to feel complete, we come to understand that we are enough, just as we are. The idea that we need friends after 60 is no longer rooted in the need for social validation or fear of loneliness. It's a profound acknowledgement that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. Through decades of life, we've learned, grown, loved, and lost. We've been there for others, offering our support, time, and energy. But as time moves on, we realize that our peace no longer hinges on having a constant stream of people around us. We've discovered a sense of self-sufficiency that is incredibly freeing. It's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on the approval of others or the presence of a crowd. There is a deep strength in solitude, a peace that can only be found when we embrace the space between us and the world. After 60, we begin to understand that being alone is not the same as being lonely. For much of our lives, we've been conditioned to seek validation in social circles, in friendships that may not always be balanced, or in people who may not have truly supported us. But after 60, the realization hits. Our time is too precious to invest in one-sided relationships, in people who take without giving, in connections that leave us drained instead of filled. We no longer have the energy to pretend, to maintain friendships out of obligation or guilt. The friendships that remain in our lives after 60 are those that are genuine and reciprocal. We no longer have space for the shallow connections that once seemed to matter. What matters now is authenticity, people who truly see you, who give as much as they take, and who respect the journey you're on. With this new understanding, we recognize that time itself is one of the most valuable things we possess. And after 60, there's a deep awareness that our time must be spent intentionally. We don't feel the need to fill every moment with activity or socializing just to pass the time. We begin to carve out time for the things that feed our soul, whether that's diving into a new hobby, exploring places we've always wanted to visit, spending quiet moments of reflection, or simply being at peace in our own company. Our time becomes sacred, and we learn to protect it fiercely, using it only for things that nurture us. Most importantly, after 60, we experience the freedom to live life on our own terms. We no longer feel pressured by societal expectations or the need to keep up with everyone else. This is the time when we can reinvent ourselves without fear of judgment or the need to meet others' standards. Whether it's pursuing a new passion, creating a new routine, or simply allowing ourselves to rest, we are free to shape our lives in a way that brings us true joy. There's no rush anymore, no need to chase after external sources of happiness. We find it within ourselves, in the quiet moments, in the reflection of all that we've lived, and in the knowledge that we are enough. So, while the world may tell us that we need to keep up with social circles, make new friends, and always be surrounded by people to feel complete, after 60, we realize that we don't need friends in the traditional sense to be whole. What we need is peace. What we need is clarity. What we need is to embrace the freedom that comes from knowing who we are and trusting that we have everything we need right inside of us. The truth is, we don't need anyone else to define our happiness. We've earned the right to live life exactly how we choose, and that, my friends, is a beautiful, liberating thing. Let me know if you'd like to refine this speech or if you'd like additional information on any part. As we age and enter the later stages of life, we come to realize something profoundly important about our own existence. True peace comes from within. This realization is perhaps one of the most liberating aspects of growing older, especially when we reach the age of 60. For much of our younger years, we are conditioned to rely on others for validation, companionship, and emotional support. We may look to friends, family, or colleagues to define our worth, to fill the voids in our lives, and to help us navigate our challenges. But as time passes and we begin to experience the natural ebb and flow of life, we start to understand that the deepest source of peace and strength lies not in the presence of others, but in our ability to stand on our own. The beauty of self-sufficiency after 60 is that it is not about isolation or withdrawing from the world. It's about learning to trust ourselves, It's about finding comfort in solitude without the fear of being alone. There is a profound sense of inner peace that comes when we realize that we don't need to constantly be surrounded by people or seek external validation to feel fulfilled. Over time, we have experienced the ups and downs of life, the joys and the heartbreaks, the triumphs and the defeats. With each challenge we've faced, we have learned to rely on our inner strength to overcome. We've become resilient not because we never faltered, but because we learned to pick ourselves back up and carry on, even when it felt difficult. We've discovered that we are capable of more than we ever thought possible. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean we don't need others at all. It simply means that we are no longer dependent on them to feel whole. We begin to recognize that while relationships are important, they should not be the foundation of our emotional well-being. As we reach this stage of life, we begin to understand that the peace we seek doesn't come from the constant noise of others' opinions or the need to be constantly busy or engaged with people. It comes from within, from the ability to quiet our minds, to be at ease with ourselves, and to embrace the stillness that comes with solitude. This shift in perspective also frees us from the need to seek approval. For so long, we may have shaped our actions, choices, and lives around what others thought or expected of us. Whether it was striving to meet societal standards, living up to the expectations of family, or seeking acceptance in social circles, we often lived our lives in pursuit of validation. But after 60, we realize that our self-worth is not tied to the opinions of others. We've lived long enough to know that people's views are fleeting, and their judgments are often based on their own limited understanding. We come to accept that our true value comes from within, and it's not something we need to prove or seek approval for. This acceptance brings a sense of liberation, a release from the constant pressure to be something we're not. In embracing self-sufficiency, we also find a sense of freedom. We no longer feel the need to conform to expectations or follow the paths laid out by others. Instead, we can chart our own course, guided by our inner compass and the wisdom we've accumulated over the years. We begin to make choices based on what feels right for us, not based on what will make others happy or what we think we should be doing. This newfound freedom allows us to live authentically, to pursue our passions without hesitation, and to take risks without fear of judgment. We realize that the only person we need to please is ourselves. Ultimately, self-sufficiency after 60 is not about rejecting relationships or closing ourselves off from the world. It's about finding balance, recognizing that while we value the connections we have, we no longer rely on them to define our happiness. The peace we seek comes from knowing that we are enough, just as we are. We have learned to trust ourselves, to listen to our own needs, and to create a life that aligns with our values and desires. And in that space, we find the freedom to be at peace with who we are, no matter what the world may think or say. As we enter the later stages of life, especially after the age of 60, something incredibly freeing happens. We start to realize that our time and energy are invaluable resources, and we simply cannot afford to waste them on shallow, one-sided relationships. For much of our earlier years, we might have held onto relationships because we felt obligated, whether due to family ties, social pressures, or the idea that friendships were something to be maintained at all costs. But as we mature, we come to understand that genuine relationships are the ones that nourish us, that provide mutual support, and that add value to our lives. We no longer feel compelled to continue relationships that drain us or serve no meaningful purpose. The truth is, after 60, we become very selective about where we invest our time. The realization that we don't have the luxury of time to waste on relationships that aren't reciprocal is liberating. We begin to understand that true friendships are based on equality, on both sides giving and receiving. We no longer tolerate friendships that are one-sided, where we are the only ones putting in effort, offering support, or extending ourselves. In fact, the older we get, the more we recognize that the energy we expend on such relationships could be better used elsewhere, in meaningful pursuits, in nourishing our own well-being, or in nurturing relationships that genuinely contribute to our happiness. This shift is not about becoming cynical or dismissive of others. Rather, it's about valuing our own time and emotional energy. We start to see relationships for what they truly are, connections that should enrich our lives, not drain them. It's no longer about maintaining relationships because of what we fear losing. It's about nurturing the ones that make us feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And when we make the decision to let go of relationships that no longer serve us, it's not out of bitterness or anger. It's simply a recognition that we deserve to be surrounded by people who reciprocate the care and respect we give them. This newfound clarity about the value of our time and energy is one of the most profound gifts that age brings. We start to view time not as something to be spent indiscriminately, but as a precious gift that should be allocated wisely. We no longer waste our days on relationships that feel like obligations, on friendships that require constant effort without offering anything meaningful in return. We understand that we are worthy of friendships that are rooted in genuine connection, trust, and mutual respect. As we grow older, we also become more attuned to our own needs and desires. We are less likely to engage in relationships that are founded on superficial connections, those that are based on status, appearances, or external factors. We seek deeper connections, ones that align with our values and that bring us joy and fulfillment. This shift leads us to cherish quality over quantity in our social circles. We no longer feel the need to be surrounded by a large group of people. Instead, we value the few who truly understand us, support us, and share in our journey. Furthermore, as we approach the later years of life, we begin to realize that we have nothing to prove to anyone. The need to be liked, to fit in, or to maintain appearances begins to fade. We come to terms with the fact that not everyone will understand us or share our values, and that's okay. The pressure to maintain relationships simply for the sake of socializing disappears, and we embrace the idea that it's better to have a handful of genuine, trustworthy friends than to have a large circle of acquaintances that don't contribute meaningfully to our lives. This shift doesn't mean that we close ourselves off from new people or become disconnected from the world around us. It simply means that we become more discerning in our relationships. We no longer feel obligated to engage with those who don't respect our time, energy, or boundaries. We understand that relationships should be a source of joy, not stress, and that it's okay to walk away from those that no longer serve our well-being. Ultimately, after 60, we come to realize that our time is finite and precious, and we choose to invest it in people who bring positivity, growth, and love into our lives. We become masters of setting boundaries and valuing ourselves enough to let go of relationships that no longer resonate with our true selves. And in doing so, we find peace, knowing that we are surrounded by people who genuinely care about us and whose energy aligns with our own. One of the most significant realizations after 60 is that our time is no longer something to squander. When we were younger, we often took time for granted, believing we had endless years ahead of us to accomplish everything we wanted to. As the years pass, however, we come to understand that time is one of the few things we can never get back. This awareness encourages us to reassess how we spend our days and to invest our time wisely. We no longer feel the need to attend every social event or engage in every conversation. We become more selective in how we spend our time, choosing to engage in activities that align with our values and passions. The freedom that comes with this shift is liberating. After 60, we understand that it's okay to say no to things that don't resonate with us or that drain our energy. For years, we may have been bound by a sense of duty, feeling as though we had to meet the expectations of others, participate in social gatherings, or maintain relationships that no longer served us. But now, we realize that we don't need to fill our time with these obligations anymore. The luxury of time, once taken for granted, is now a precious commodity. We can use it to cultivate inner peace, develop new skills, explore hobbies, or simply rest. In our earlier years, many of us may have found ourselves caught up in the busyness of life. We rushed from one task to the next, juggling responsibilities, trying to meet deadlines, and running on fumes to keep up with the demands of family, work, and society. We often sacrificed our own needs, passions, and well-being in favor of what was expected of us. But after 60, we start to let go of that constant hustle. We no longer feel the pressure to be constantly busy or to keep up with the ever-increasing demands placed on us by the world. Instead, we become more mindful of how we use our time, focusing on the activities that truly enrich our lives. This shift allows us to be more present in the moment. We no longer feel the need to rush through life, ticking off boxes and completing tasks. Instead, we savor the small moments, the quiet morning coffee, the peaceful walk in nature, the time spent with loved ones. We begin to realize that the joy in life is not found in constantly striving or achieving, but in simply being. This is a revelation that comes with age, a deeper understanding that the pursuit of happiness doesn't have to be tied to accomplishments or external validation. It is found in embracing the present and making time for the things that bring us peace. Additionally, the recognition that time is finite encourages us to let go of unnecessary distractions and unimportant tasks. We begin to focus our energy on what truly brings us fulfillment. Whether that is pursuing a passion we've always put on the back burner, cultivating deeper relationships, or dedicating time to self-reflection and personal growth. We start to engage in activities that enrich our lives, not just in terms of productivity, but in terms of joy, fulfillment, and personal satisfaction. We stop filling our calendars with things that don't matter and begin to create space for what truly nourishes our souls. This redefined relationship with time also allows us to invest more in our health and well-being. Instead of pushing through exhaustion or neglecting our bodies in the name of duty or productivity, we start to prioritize rest, exercise, and activities that promote mental and physical health. We realize that our well-being is not something to be taken for granted, and we begin to create routines that support our overall health and happiness. After 60, our understanding of time becomes one of the greatest tools for creating a life of purpose and meaning. We no longer waste time on things that don't align with our values, and we become masters of crafting a life that feels fulfilling and authentic. The freedom to live on our own terms becomes a source of peace, and with that peace comes the ability to embrace each day fully, knowing that we are using our time in the most meaningful way possible. As we grow older, particularly after the age of 60, a significant shift occurs in how we view relationships and what we seek from them. One of the most profound changes is the realization that we no longer need the approval or validation of others to feel good about ourselves. Throughout our lives, many of us have spent time seeking approval from others, whether it was trying to gain the acceptance of peers, trying to impress family members, or simply following the rules of societal norms. We lived with the underlying belief that we had to meet certain expectations to be valued. However, as we age, we come to a powerful understanding we are enough just as we are, and our sense of self-worth no longer hinges on the opinions or judgments of others. This newfound perspective is incredibly liberating. After 60, we begin to see that the need for validation from external sources fades away, and we realize that we are fully capable of validating ourselves. We've lived through enough life experiences, both good and bad, to know who we are at our core. We understand that we've earned our place in this world, and we no longer have to justify ourselves to anyone. This sense of self-assurance comes from years of introspection, personal growth, and learning from our successes and failures. We've come to accept that we are not perfect, but we are authentic, and that is enough. This shift also means that we no longer feel compelled to fit into molds that society has set for us. In our younger years, we may have felt the pressure to conform to certain expectations about career paths, family life, or social standing. We might have been influenced by what others thought was right or acceptable, but as we enter our later years, we begin to realize that these external pressures lose their significance. We no longer need to meet arbitrary standards to prove our worth. Our value isn't determined by how many friends we have, how successful our career is, or how closely we adhere to social norms. We have learned that true happiness comes from living authentically and doing what feels right for us. This understanding of our own self-worth also allows us to embrace our individuality. After 60, we become more comfortable with who we are, quirks and all. We no longer feel the need to change ourselves to fit into the expectations of others. Whether it's our appearance, our interests, or the way we live our lives, we start to embrace what makes us unique. This sense of freedom is incredibly empowering, and it helps us make decisions that are in alignment with our true selves. Instead of worrying about how we are perceived, we focus on what makes us happy and fulfilled, and we allow ourselves to live with confidence. Moreover, as we grow older, we become less concerned with what others think of us and more focused on our own well-being. We've learned through experience that trying to please everyone is an impossible task, and the energy spent seeking the approval of others is better used for personal growth and inner peace. We begin to make choices that prioritize our happiness, even if they go against the grain of what others might expect. Whether that means pursuing a new passion, taking a risk, or setting boundaries with people who no longer align with our values, we are no longer afraid to make decisions that serve our best interests. This change in perspective also extends to our relationships. We start to surround ourselves with people who truly support and uplift us, rather than those who expect us to meet certain standards or fulfill specific roles. We no longer feel obligated to stay in relationships where we are not valued or respected. Instead, we seek out connections that are based on mutual love, respect, and understanding. We recognize that healthy relationships are those that bring out the best in both parties, where there is give and take, and where both individuals feel accepted for who they truly are. The freedom that comes with no longer needing the approval of others also allows us to pursue our passions and dreams without hesitation. We no longer feel the need to explain our choices or defend our decisions. Instead, we embrace the opportunity to live life on our own terms. Whether it's taking up a new hobby, traveling, or spending more time with loved ones, we do so with the confidence that we deserve to experience joy and fulfillment, regardless of what others may think. In the end, the ability to live without seeking external validation is one of the most empowering aspects of growing older. It's a gift that comes with time, wisdom, and self-reflection. We've learned that we are enough, just as we are, and that the only approval we truly need is our own. This realization allows us to live more fully, with greater authenticity, and to embrace life with the understanding that our happiness and self-worth are not dependent on anyone else's approval. We are free to be ourselves and to make choices that reflect the person we've become. And in that freedom, we find a deep and lasting peace.